Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Me. I have a new book that I just read that I'd like to go over. So this will be Freemasonry and Satanism, book review number 89. There was a question in the back of my mind on copyright rules, and apparently 60-70 years passes and there are no copyright protections. And I do like to collect old books, and I have many of them, and we are trying to figure out what's going on in our reality. This book is the Riddle of Life series, the Theosophy Society, Theosophy and Social Reconstruction. I think that's kind of appropriate to the conversation. Social Reconstruction. When we're talking about a new age and a new world order. By Hayden Guest. Forward by Annie Besant. So who started the Theosophy Society? And what's it got to do with social reconstruction? The Theosophy Society, or the Theosophy, apparently is the new religion for the whole world. Cosmology. The science of the stars. Maybe the stars are angels. Or are they angels stars? Anyways, forward by Annie Besant. So let's look at the back of the book. The Theosophical Society, to form a nucleus of a universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. To encourage the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science. To investigate unexplained laws of nature and the powers latent in man. The Theosophical Society is composed of students belonging to any religion in the world, or to none, who are united by their approval of the above objects, by their wish to remove religious antagonisms, and to draw together men of goodwill. Whatsoever their religious opinions, and by their desire to study religious truths, and to share the results of their studies with others. Their bond of union is not the profession of common belief, but a common search and aspiration for truth. So that sounds rather nice. Let's see what else we can see on this book before I start reading. The Riddle of Life series, and how the Riddle of Life and how Theosophy answers it, by Annie Besant. The Life and Death and how Theosophy unveils it, by C.W. Ledbetter. And Theosophy and Social Reconstruction, the book I have here. So before I start, I had a couple interesting things to point out. The Theosophy Society, 1. Number 2, Annie Besant wrote the foreword. So, El Theosophical Publishing Society, 161 New Bond Street, West, London. Okay, so the Theosophy Society. So they wrote this book. It's part of a series, the Riddle of Life series. I think this is kind of important when we consider some of the quagmires of our reality, like the Mandela effect. Or like all that money and years spent forming the European Union, only to recently have England drop out Britain. And apparently others will follow. It should cause great distress to Europe and probably the world. The Mandela effect, where apparently there are some changes in our reality. People remember things differently that they see now. And then, of course, we have the threat of Planet X, the Black Star. Albert Pike in Morals and Dogma, predicting 3 world wars, the leader of the Freemasons. So we've had World War I, World War II. And it looks like everybody's posturing for World War III. So anyways, I found something that's apropos. Because the creator of the Theosophic Society, one of them, was Helena Blavatsky. We've been going over her book, The Secret Doctrine. So what does that have to do with this? So they also formed a publishing company called, you're not going to believe it, Lucifer Magazine. So what we're talking about here, generally speaking, is a religion that not too many people are aware of, average citizens out there. But there are a lot of people into this New Age material and watching these things about the astral plane, ascension. A lot of people gravitating towards that, and according to what we can see, a lot of people getting the satanic, demonic, skull and bones, dragons, snakes, knives, tattoos all over their bodies. There's something going on with the psyche of our reality. Yes? No? And they're trying to destroy Christianity. So here I got this book, Theosophy and Social Reconstruction. So are we to believe that Annie Besant, let me tell you where Annie Besant fits in here. She wrote the foreword for that book. Lucifer Magazine. Colossians 2:8. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Truth is stranger than fiction. In 1887, Russian occultists, witchcraft, magic. Helena Blavatsky, 1831-1891, published Lucifer Magazine in London. She died 4 years later, and her co-editor, Annie Besant, the one who wrote the foreword for this book I'm going to read. Lucifer Magazine. Reconstruction of our world. Continued the magazine until 1895, when George Robert Stowe Mead became a co-editor. The magazine journal appeared 12 times a year and was 50 to 60 pages long. The last issue was published in August of 1897. Between more than 2,800 articles were published in Lucifer Magazine. And the magazine was renamed the Theosophical Review. So there you have it. Lucifer Magazine was renamed the Theosophical Review. Blavatsky is an infamous Luciferian worshiper. So these people control the United Nations. They have the meditation room. They have an office right next door to the United Nations. It appears to me this is the part of the new world order religion, the one the Pope talks about, when he sent out that video to all the other religious leaders of the world, I suspect, the one I watched, and he said there's no longer a reason for us to be separated. We might as well reunite. What is he talking about? Have they all decided to join the Luciferic satanic camp. It says here, Lucifer is the logos in the highest, and the adversary in his lowest aspect, both of which are reflected in our ego. The Secret Doctrine 2, page 162. Satan is the god of our planet, the only god. I'll put my finger on here so you can see it. Can't see, hope you can see it. Alright, Blavatsky sums up by writing, Lucifer is divine and terrestrial light. The Holy Ghost and Satan are one and the same, and now it stands proven that Satan and the red fiery dragon and Lucifer, the light bearer, is in us, in our mind, our tempter, our redeemer, our intelligence liberator and savior. Yakaruski. Here's a picture of the Lucifer, the Theosophical magazine. I tried to go online and buy a couple, but they were rather expensive. The ones I could find. And on the front page I just read, as we see with all of our movie stars and famous people and others, with their t-shirts with the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, the rays of light, which apparently represents Lucifer, the reptilian. Looks like a reptilian eye. And it's on the US $1 bill. There's more here to read, but I thought I'd make a point here. So Annie Besset, Helena Blavatsky, in sequence, were taking over the Theosophist Society, and another player in that was Alice Bailey, who was also in Initiation, Human and Solar. What's interesting about this book, which I will go over and read and share, is it was published by Lucifer Publishing Company. Letters on Occult Meditation, The Consciousness of the Atom, A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, the first edition 1922, second edition 1924, Lucifer Publishing Company, 140 Cedar Street, New York City. There's a couple things in this book that are kind of interesting. Solar and planetary hierarchies. Sort of looks like Kabbalah, Hermetic teaching, Rosicrucian. And the logos comprises of initiates above the fifth initiation and a group of devas or angels. So I think we're dealing with some kind of beings behind the veil, as I keep saying. Between me and this screen is the book now, which we can call the veil. And they're trying to take the veil away. With CERN, they're trying to open a portal and allow access to this dimension by these beings. And B, on page 50, the Blue Lodge, that would be the Freemasons, comprises of all initiates of the third, fourth, and fifth initiations, the Lodge of the Masters. You can't make this stuff up. So, it says there, it's comprised of devas or angels. So you know me. I went to Yahoo image site and put in divas. What are we dealing with? I've read the Bible. Many people know the Bible. Everybody probably knows what the word angel means. So what is this new religion with Lucifer in charge? This new age, this new world order. What does it mean with the breakup of Britain, the EU? And in the United States, seems like some looming threat. Preparations, Jade Helm 15. Hollow point bullets, $450 million the government purchased. 30,000 guillotines. And offering us 2 presidential candidates, apparently, who are both into the occult. I call the occult also with the Freemasonic literature I've been reading from Albert Pike's book. And Alice Bailey, and witchcraft. So who are these divas, these angels, these things, these beings? Ocean Spirits, Paul Silas. I just found these pictures on the Yahoo Image Diva site. So what are these light beings when we understand that Lucifer, represented by the suns and his rays, is called the light bearer. Lucifer means luminous. Lucas. See all the symbolism there? The sun, the rays, and the beings. Some people call them elementals. A lot of people are into divas and goddesses. We see it everywhere. And these elementals or divas or whatever, I guess, are part of nature and the forest and trees. Apparently has something to do with the Hindu language, or I should say the Hindu religion. Notice the trident fork in the back, and the baby with the many arms. And the gods over there in India, or whoever these statues are, in ancient monuments. Ancient monuments, beings with many arms. Shanti Shanti, walking with the divas. Occultism in Hollywood, a lot of people claim to be possessed. They're into meditation and yoga. Interdimensional beings? Are they trying to open some kind of portal to let these kinds of beings through? Are they benevolent or are they malevolent? Good or evil? So you can go on Yahoo image site and look up divas. Everybody says, wow, those are such pretty pictures. So what is this new reality that seems like it's coming? In a very vicious way. Here's a diva coming right out of a flower. Interesting beings, beings of light. Many of us would probably think we were talking about angels. Notice the wings. Notice the sword. Lovely lady with a sword. And a halo around her head like Jesus. Look at this being. So when you do look at the, and where a lot of these people into the New Age are into crystals. When you look at the Yahoo image site on divas and see these pictures, there's a link there where these pictures came from. Here's someone sitting in the lotus position, obviously Hindu. What are these beings? Little naked women? Wings? What is this religion that's trying to replace Christianity? Just me asking questions. So, I mean, anyway, so that was one part of what I discovered. And I'm continuing to read this book, The Occult in the Third Reich. Hitler was into the occult. So we can tie that in with this other information. It says on the back of this book, a member of the occult, the Thule group. Thule. Hitler sought to justify his theory of the supreme race and acquiring the integral knowledge of good and evil. This knowledge, hidden in the past, contained the secret of the genesis of the world, and as Hitler believed, the justification for Nazi political theory. And then I've been reading the Techniques of the Master here, which I need to finish. Again, more Rosicrucianism and the initiates submitting to the Master. Complete submission. And then, of course, Morals and Dogma, the Bible for the Freemasons. So all these books seem to be connected. And getting back to this book here I was looking at, Initiation, Human and Solar. I highlighted just a couple tabs here. You can see the little purple things. Let's see what the other ones say here. This one is the rods of initiation. The purpose of the rods of power. I can't wait to read this book. And again, this one was published, Lucifer Publishing Company. I already pointed that out. Like the Lucifer magazine. And it talks about the rods of power and masters who stand one on either side of the initiate. The three of them together form a triangle which makes the work possible. What work? And the rod of the Bodhisattva lies hidden in the heart of the wisdom that is at Shambhala. So Shambhala is supposed to be some secret city in the Himalayan mountains, Tibet area. The rod of the one initiator is hidden in the east, a definite planetary location. The rod of the solar logos is hidden in the heart of the sun, that mysterious subjective sphere which lies back of our present sun, and of which our physical sun is but an environing shield and envelope. So the solar logos is hidden in the heart of the sun, that mysterious subjective sphere that lies back of our physical sun, and of which our physical sun is but an environing shield and envelope. We'll get to that. So now I think I'll start reading this book. We got a little bit of an idea about this Theosophical society, the creation of Theosophy, and apparently by Helena Blavatsky, Annie Besant, and Alice Bailey, and many others, who also created the Lucifer magazine and published a lot of these New Age books, which people are believing and hook, line, and sinker. Is it a good thing? Theosophy and Social Reconstruction. See, I like to do videos about things most people don't talk about. This was published in 1912, so we can say that copyright laws don't apply here. So anyways, the foreword by Annie Besant. Dr. Hayden Guest uses the teachings of reincarnation and karma. So we saw those divas. In this relation, a happy phrase occurs. Progress depends upon the will of God, although the rate of that progress depends upon the will of man. To explain the present conditions of society, and then proceeds to apply them in order to find the line of least resistance for social reform. I believe that this booklet is an honest and useful attempt to help forward social reform on righteous and brotherly lines, and I therefore earnestly commend it to the thoughtful lovers of men, Annie Besant, President of the Theosophical Society. Chapter 1. This was written by L. Hayden Guest, Theosophy and Social Reconstruction, back in 1912. So it might be worth listening to these words with these people coming from this religion with the divas and apparently Lucifer being their god. The desire for some kind of social reconstruction and for improvement in the ordering of social life, indeed very nigh universal, and every political party in England bears witness to it. So this was prior to World War I. This book was written in 1912. World War I started in 1916, continued to 1918, whereas Germany was winning the war, but then the Jews' leadership of the Zionist movement, who adhered to the Talmud book, Bible, and the Zohar, and the Kabbalah, who think that they are the aristocrats of the world. They are the inheritors, rulers of the world, and they believe that it's forthcoming. So these Jewish people betrayed Germany, who had given them refuge when they were fleeing from Russia. And so then hence Germany lost the war. So this is in 1912. Germany was winning the war that started in 1916, ended in 1918. And right after that, in 1917, became the big war, revolution, invasion of Russia by the same Zionist Jewish folks into these, in my opinion, demonic religions. And killed, they say, admitted it in ways in a Jerusalem Maine magazine, newspaper, 25 million, Christians and other good people. And some writers have estimated it was 100 million. Many of them killed by starvation in Russia when they went after Russia after Germany fell. And I think all this stuff is tied together. That change is needed is conceded on all hands. Discussion centers upon the nature of that change. Think about that. They took over the Federal Reserve in the United States in 1917. They controlled our money supply. They've been loaning money to our government with some kind of contracts that the government and the people, we the people, and our resources, national parks, our own houses, land, and money, the whole nation, the people, are security for that borrowed money from these Zionist banksters, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Chases, Morgans, who are these Zionist Jewish folks and probably people of this new one world order, new one world religion, worshiping Lucifer. If you want to figure out the whole puzzle here. So over the course since 1917 till now, 2016, almost 100 years, One more year, it will be 100 years. That these bankster, Zionist, reformed Jewish people who turn towards the dark side, in my opinion, Luciferic religion, who are into the occultic, magic, witchcraft, and all that other stuff, plotting against humanity. So anyways, when they took over the Federal Reserve in 1917, apparently they crashed the system 8 or 9 times. Families who had worked hard and earned money, and they crashed the system because they can control the flow of money in the United States. And they can control the interest rates, everything. And who gets the money? To buy up all your property and my property and we the people's property when they crash it. They get it all. They didn't have to work for it. So anyways, they're writing a book here called Theosophy and Social Reconstruction. And they want change. And Obama was supposed to give us change. Trump is supposed to give us change. Make America strong again. They use these logos and sayings and words to manipulate us, deceive us. So what do we get? We get Trump, who has a Freemasonic symbolism in his $1 million condo in New York City. You can go look it up. Or we get Hillary, who apparently, according to Larry Nichols on Lisa Haven's show, Alex Jones' shows, and other ones, was a manager for the Clintons in their political business. And apparently, Hillary Clinton goes to Vegas or wherever to witches' conventions, and maybe she's a witch. So these people, that change is needed is conceded on all hands. Discussion centers only upon the nature of that change. So if you start studying this stuff enough, you keep seeing the common denominators. The problem with poverty, so long regarded as insoluble, is now boldly attacked as an unavoidable evil, and Sidney Webb has formulated the great conception of a national minimum applying to all that concerns the normal life of man, education, health, housing, wages, etc., and it is to become the business of the state to secure that none of its citizens shall fall below this level. So they plan to have a national minimum for the people all over the world, guaranteeing you 3 things. A warm bed to sleep in, and a job, food, and life. Now wait a minute. Don't we give a dog food, a place to sleep, and life? Don't these people think, as we've gone over before, like the Jews calling us, the bad Jews, calling us goyim cattle, the Freemasonic societies calling us profane, H.G. Wells calling us animals not to be trusted? So they're going to guarantee that we get health, housing, wages. And it is to become the business of the state to secure that none of its citizens shall fall below that level. Well, thank you very much, but I'm not a dog. Sounds like communism, the New Age, New World Order. No party professes unadulterated individualism, and none unadulterated socialism. But each party, this would be the Democrats, Republicans, or over there in Europe, they call it the Tory Party or the Social Party or whatever. Anyways, to take up a position somewhere along the lines between these 2 extremes. Which, of course, if you did have something between the lines of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, liberalism and conservatism, the middle ground, you probably would have a healthy, happier world. But I don't think that's the problem. Nobody's policing these politicians. How do you tell when a politician is lying? His lips are moving, or hers. Fair and balanced here. So these people who get into politics are lying. They're telling us what they want, what they think we want to hear. They have no intentions, and their handlers wouldn't let them do what they want to do anyways, as we've clearly seen in the John Kennedy assassination. Even if they get into power because they belong to these groups, if they don't become a puppet to the puppet masters, we know what happens to them. So moving on, and if we attempt to delve deeper and go beyond the comparative superficially of the opposition of socialist and individualist and correlate our ideas of social reconstruction, remember, who's saying these words? What group of people? The Theosophy Society. They worship Lucifer. Any scientific view of the world with any philosophical system or with any religious revelation, the attempt becomes one of the very greatest difficulties. Yet, if we are to put our present-day efforts into proper perspective and to see them in their correct proportion as the heirs of the past, the inheritors of the past, and the progenitors of the future, we must find some way of bringing our plans and our schemes into relation with an outline of world development. The attempt to do this has been frequently made. Every utopian has done it. In a sense, every great reformer must try to do it. So apparently Hitler was a great reformer, and Professor Higgins wrote The Jewish Utopia, which really said some ugly things about the rest of us. That they're the aristocrats, and we were born to serve them. One of the latest efforts, that of trying to understand the present in the light of the neo-Darwinism thought, has resulted in some curious byproducts of a social legislation. To attempt to see the social life as a phase of the struggle for existence has resulted in suggestions designed more or less crudely to relieve us of the burden of the unfit by segregation, sterilization, and the lethal chamber, and these suggestions are put into partial operations in Europe and America and are seriously and attentively discussed. So they do think there are a huge amount of people in the population of the world who are unfit, and they want to get them away from society or eliminated by segregation, sterilization, or the lethal chamber. And these suggestions are put into partial operation in Europe, in America, and are seriously, attentively discussed. Now remember, this is 1912. This is before World War II, 1939 to 1945-46, when they said Hitler did that. This is many years earlier. The Socialists of Karl Marx, again, attempts to explain all things by a special conception of history, and every social and political thinker, so far as he attempts to reach fundamentals, must attempt to find some kind of philosophical foundation for his purposes. When we come to religion, we find that there is not even any attempt worthy of the name to correlate the Christian religion with politics and government. Statesmanship, religion, business, and science and philosophy are kept in separate compartments. There is the further difficulty that before any of the ideas current in the world of today can gain expression, in fact, they have to pass through the swirl and storm of the democratic electoral machine. Ideas, plans, schemes, or proposals are counters in the game for the winning of the popular approval. So the people right now who want to be a politician, whether it's a Democratic Party or a Republican, and I suspect, generally speaking, it's just a choice. It's not really a philosophical belief for the conservative Republicans or the liberal Democrats. The people may have a philosophical belief, But I think the politicians are just after the power and prestige, money and connections, all that stuff. My opinion. Amid such confusion, surrounded by such difficulties, the possibility of building any social structure of permanent importance may well appear illusory. I'm just reading my highlighted portions as usual. This book was printed in 1912 in London, so certainly 100 years has passed. It's not under any copyright rules, so I can read as much as I like and have commentary. This is most clearly seen with regard to religion. The attempt to bring consideration of problems of factory organizations or rates of wages, for instance, into intelligible relation with the Christian faith, produces a grotesque confusion. Politicians and social reformers habitually treated the religious explanation of the world as having no immediate practical application. God is felt to be a long way out of the world. In my opinion, it's the furthest from the truth. These people have freedom of choice, and I believe we all will have to pay. Of course, if you believe in Jesus, that he was crucified, existed, risen from the dead, apparently in the Bible, you will be saved. Anyways, moving on, and then perhaps one asks, what is the use of it all? Is there indeed any God in the world, any order, any law, or is it all blind chance? There have been great civilizations in the past. They have passed away. Like waves on the sea, they have arisen and disappeared. What guarantee have we that our civilization, too, will not rise up and then pass away again? Like another wave on the life sea of this planet. All I know is we're alive today, and if you're over there in the Middle East, you're probably under a lot of duress and stress if you're alive, from all the murder and mayhem and theft of land and resources by these people in charge of our world since 9/11 and before. The oil, the land, Rothschild sponsoring the Zionist movement, and working in cahoots with the Balfour Agreement to get the land and resources of the Middle East. Look up the Balfour Agreement. Look up Prime Minister Sharon of Israel saying, don't worry about America, we control America. Look up Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and what he said in Fink's Bar. He said they hate America and they're going to destroy America. Look it up. Don't believe me. You're not helping me if you just believe me. Got to get a notebook and take notes. And it may be that in such mood one may turn away from the world, believing that there is no balm for its wounds, no permanent hope, no solution for its evil, no relation between the individual and general life, and that it offers only empty satisfactions. For ordinary religion does not help us. So this is the philosophy, not my philosophy, of these people. For ordinary religion does not help us. It offers vague metaphysics and beautiful fairy stories, but no food for the mind. Ask ordinary Christianity or Judaism why one man is put by God to be born in a slum and grow up a criminal outcast, while another is born surrounded by the comforts and elegancies of life and grows up to be a great statesman. And there is no answer sufficing for the heart and the reason. Ask what happens to a man's soul after death. If indeed man is not a mere congress of physical atoms, and the answer can only make any scientific-minded man smile by its entire vagueness. Take away the great sorrow of love or of death to them, and they can only give platitudes and generalities, but for the mind, nothing else at all. What is there then in the world? Is the sphere of politics and social affairs, turmoil, doubt, confusion, in the world of ideas, aridity and the loss of hope, and in the world of religion, dogma, platitudes, superstitions? Is it worthwhile attempting any social reconstructing at all? And if it is, at what point in the confusion are we to begin? Or must we be governed by the needs of the moment? Well, as I've said before, the Federal Reserve, created in 1913, Christmas time, December 21st, while everybody was on Christmas vacation. So much for them to bashing Christianity. They had to make sure the Christians had gone home before they did their dirty deed. And then they controlled our economic situation and had aspirations for a world empire, and say that the United States now owes its debt 13, 18, what, trillion? And if you include interest on that, would it be like a home mortgage of 100 grand, where you actually pay 300 grand by the end of the 30 years? So let's see, 15 trillion in the middle there would be 45 trillion with interest rates if it were to be able to pay it off in 30 years. And the money wasn't spent on we people in the United States. It was spent on, and it is being spent on, building this new world empire, this new age religion, Luciferic, I suspect, satanic, by the symbolism we see everywhere, and the New World Order. And I think this thing over there with Britain backing out of the EU is just a prelude. There was an article I saw today that said, is Texas next? Can this happen in Texas in the United States? So is it setting the stage so that they could justify some movement like Texas to withdraw from the United States? They need to wink in all the links. That's why they did the, apparently, supposedly, some very interesting evidence that the Orlando shooting in the gay bar by that guy has some very interesting information attached to it that makes it yet again suspect. There's no doubt about Sandy Hook, some people say, and I say. Boston bombing, the bombing over there in France, San Bernardino, 9/11, and the others. So they're using these incidences, planned and executed, to try to get into our minds so that we will allow them to disarm us. And they have a plan for reconstruction. And wait till you hear what I read in this book. All right, here we go. And remember, when you're watching my videos, and if they are a long video, 2 hours, whatever, you don't have to watch it all at the same time. You watch it until you just get a little agitated, or, you get restless. And you hit pause. You come back to your computer later, even the next day. You look down on the bottom left or wherever it is, and you write down, if the computer doesn't start in the right place, write down the little time mark, 22 minutes, 1 minute, whatever. Some people go, oh, I can watch 15-minute videos, but I can't watch a 2-hour video. And I'm thinking, what a lunatic. All you got to do is hit pause and make a 1-hour video into 4 15-minute exercises. Common sense needs to apply. But I think the information is important, at least for a conversation, so we can get some grip on what's going on with the people who control our reality. All right, it says here, chapter 2, the Theosophical Solution. Into this world of strife, confusion, and pain, Theosophy comes like a flood of sunlight, bringing illumination, peace, order, and assurance of progress. Wow, there's a bunch of words. Illumination, Illuminati. Sunlight, the light bearer, Satan. Regarding man as a spiritual being, it bids us look on the scheme of organic evolution as providing the field for the evolution of spirit. and one of its most fruitful ideas, without which the complexities of the modern world cannot be resolved at all, is that this evolution takes place by the continued reincarnation of spirit in bodies of matter. So part of the basis of this theosophical religion is that we are all reincarnated. The most painful and insistent of our human problems are made clear by this doctrine of reincarnation. Take any modern social problem that deals with poverty, the problem, for instance, presented by the mentally defective. Thousands of these mentally defective people are living in England today, and they come for the most part from the lowest slums and from the most poverty-stricken areas. How are we to reconcile the birth of these people, the lives and experiences of these people, with any undesirable idea of law in the world? And if God is love, how reconcile it with any understandable idea of justice or of love in the world? For all men born in one year are not mentally defective. Some born into the professional classes, and others well cared for. Groups of the community are provided with good heredity and favorable circumstances. Why should one spiritual being be born mentally defective and another as a future statesman? For the slums of great cities often run in and out of the most prosperous neighborhoods. Heredity explains the body. But what explains the choice of this body for the soul? Frank materialism may accept heredity, but as the sole explanation, and deny the soul or spirit, but frank materialism is in itself no longer acceptable to the mind which investigates contemporary evidence of the superphysical. So they're saying that, and I believe that we're dual beings. I am. Everybody is. This is a physical, material body, and I do have a soul, which is a spiritual body. So they say, and these mentally defective humans can be born from bad hereditary, bad families, slum areas, uneducated people, defectives. And then some people are born in more wealthier communities and into the upper classes and all that. And I suppose they're not defective. So these people would believe. And then we have spiritual bodies, which can be born older souls or new souls, educated, wise souls, and young, uneducated souls. So moving on here. And no hypothesis generally current in the Western world other than reincarnation will explain these facts in any way reconcile with the idea of law. And yet there must be a law governing the coming to birth of the spirits who inhabit bodies on this earth. So they're saying there must be some spiritual law in the heavens that dictates the spirits that come in our bodies when we're born. Everywhere in the universe where man's mind has penetrated, everywhere where facts have been collected, arranged, scrutinized, the law has been found. In chemistry, astronomy, in physics, and biology, everywhere law. Are we to believe that there is no law in the spiritual world? That in which affects the man's essence, all is left to chance? For the theory that man comes but once to this earth, inhabits the so greatly differing bodies of the mentally defective and the statesman, then goes away and returns no more, is not conformable with any understanding of an idea of law. Shall there be hell for the criminal who never had a chance, and heaven for the well-off man who never had a temptation? Did you catch all that? So just by chance, somebody could be born to a lower income family, the slums. And to survive, he becomes a thief or something. So if it's just chance, then supposedly he goes to hell for being a thief. And another person, just by chance, lives in an upper neighborhood, goes to a good school, never has any financial suffering, so he doesn't submit to temptation, so he goes to heaven. I don't think that's how it works. Surely the laws of our own spirit are not more beyond us than the laws of the movements and constitution of suns millions and billions of miles away. And one of the greatest gifts of Theosophy to the modern world is to the restatement in clear and simple language of the theory of reincarnation, which explains these facts and of the laws under which they take place. According to this theory, the reincarnation of the human spirit in the human body is only one chapter in the story of spiritual evolution. The whole universe exists but for the evolution of spirit, and at a certain point in that evolution, the spirit reaches the lowest human condition and becomes recognizable as a human entity. The spirit, as an infant human soul, is then ready to undergo its human experiences, and as a child going to school enters first the lowest and the most elementary class, so the infant soul enters the simplest and most elementary human bodies. So they're saying souls are like people who go to school, that each time you're born you get into a body and situation appropriate to your growth. After living a life in this body and gaining knowledge of actions and their results, of desires and repulsions, of pleasures and pains, and of every kind of experience, the body dies, and the soul, set free in the finer worlds, assimilates the result of these experiences, is modified by the assimilation, and comes back after an interval spent in this process, and in rest to gain another life experience. So they're promoting the concept, or believe in the concept, of reincarnation. We know they believe in devas and spirits and ghosts, and Jesus was casting out unclean spirits and demons. Time after time, the soul of man comes into a mortal body, experiences therein birth, infancy, youth, old age, death. Time after time, the soul assimilates and experiences and grows in their nourishment, until having entered at the lowest form, he passes at the end into the highest and has completed his human evolution, having learned all that his earthly school has to teach. On this theory, the differences between the degraded slum dweller and the most primitive savage, the average civilized man, the saint and the genius are explained as being due to differences in length of human evolution. The saint and the genius entered the school of earth a very long time ago. So they're saying these people who were saints and geniuses have lived on earth a very long time ago. They are nearing the end of their experiences. The savage and the slum dweller, on the other hand, are at the beginning. The average man is halfway. Did you catch all that? So the people who are into the elitism, or geniuses or whatever, have very old souls. That's why they're there. And the average person is probably living in the average amount of reincarnations. And the people who are savage and slum dwellers are at the beginning, the brand new souls. Are you buying this? The object of lives on this earth is that the soul shall learn the lessons these lives have to teach, and to grow in that stage at which we shall have no more to learn from earth. Then we shall be ready for the still mightier evolution which stretches beyond. I will say I believe we have souls, and if there is reincarnation, I think we're here for a reason. Whether a new soul, an old soul, maybe somebody didn't do so well in a past life and They were put into certain circumstances in this life to learn the lesson. Plausible. Applying this theory to our modern life, we find that where before all was disorder, pain, and confusion, now there is order. We are all a world full of beings at different stages of growth, needing different environments, different conditions. And from all the disturbance and turmoil of the world, we see emerging the certainty of a law guiding the spirit of man on the path of his evolution. The mere contemptuous contemplation of the theory of reincarnation has already reduced the chaos of social problems to something like manageable proportions. We begin to see that if we can only discover the laws under which reincarnation takes place, we shall have a firm foundation for our social building. Social building. To understand these laws, all right, it is necessary to clearly keep in mind the broad outline of the cosmic process as conceived by the Theosophical teaching. According to this, the logos of a system creates the worlds of that system as a field for the evolution of the spiritual individuals who are therein to unfold their powers. These spiritual individuals are sparks of the divine life and come forth from him by the exercise of his will. Remember, they worship Lucifer, which is also their will, as they are part of him. To the Theosophist, the world does not consist only of a scientifically defined physical and vaguely hinted at spiritual world, but of a series of 7 planes of matter. Here we go. Helena Blavatsky's secret doctrine, each finer than the other. This is the Hermetic Kabbalah teaching also. Beginning at the densest on the physical level, rising through the emotional to the mental, and then through the higher worlds to the highest of all, which are beyond the reach of man. And each of these planes is the habitat of the spirit in its appropriate vehicle of manifestation. It is in the physical, emotional, or astral, and mental worlds that the specifically human evolution takes place. And it is the complete mastery of these worlds and the bodies made of their materials, which man uses in his evolution, which is the object of this evolution. Wow, a lot of material. Lose my voice after a while. The man who has thus completed his lessons on earth is perfect as far as humanity is concerned, and is called a master of wisdom, because having absolute power over his developed mind, nothing is hidden from him in this system. That such masters have existed in the past. The history is of great religion. The history of the great religion bears witness. A little breezy out here right now. To give the knowledge that such men are living now is part of the message which Theosophy brings into the world. The law by which this human evolution takes place is called conveniently by this Sanskrit word karma, which may be translated the law of action and reaction. Man in his evolution has free will. He may do what he will, either in the world of action, the physical, or in the world of emotion and desire, the astral, or in the world of the mind, with one proviso, that he bears all the results of his actions, painful and pleasurable, and that he escapes nothing, that he pays the uttermost farthing of his debts. Some actions the soul discovers cause pain, and others bring happiness. At first, his recognition of causal connection is absent, or very limited. But as life succeeds life, as certain actions always bring pain, certain others happiness, the soul learns. And as he learns, he grows, his powers unfold. From the savage, he grows into the average. From the average, he climbs higher still, until he who was at the beginning of the infant soul stands forth glorious as a master of wisdom, a perfect man. The attainment of this goal is the object of human evolution as laid down by the Logos, and because it is his will that man shall finally attain, this achievement is ultimately inevitable for all. Man may delay or go far astray, for he has free will, but sooner or later the general current of evolution will carry with it to his destiny. To struggle against this current is in the long run impossible. So by evolution and the reincarnation of the soul, apparently everybody gets carried to the final end, to become the perfect man or woman. Just saying. This means that progress depends upon the will of God, although the rate of that progress depends on the will of man. Man is a spark of the divine life. Every man as such, a spark, and the difference between man depend upon the length of his evolution and not on differences of their essential nature. Just as in a family, some are born earlier and are elder, and some later and are younger, but all are brothers because children of the same Father. So in the world, some souls are born earlier and are elder, and some later and are younger, but all are brothers because sons are of the divine Father, out of whose life all lives have sprung. This is the brotherhood of man, foundly securely on the fatherhood of God. But the statement is not left here. For when the teaching concerning the superphysical planes of matter is studied, we find the reality of this brotherhood taken from the realm of statement to that of scientific fact. Brotherhood on the higher planes is as much a fact of nature as is the law of gravity in the physical world. But in the most important conclusions of all which emerges from this study is that of the inner certainty of God. Man is a spark of the divine flame. By his nature he is one with him, and by this identity of nature he can know him within as he knows himself, not only intellectually, recognizing divinity, but by contemplating the world without. But inwardly knowing it by his identifying with it. Theosophy, in this way, brings God back into the world, gives the outline of a plan on which human evolution is proceeding, states the main laws governing this evolution, and provides a science of the spirit of which the superphysical worlds, by means of which these laws and this evolution may be understood. The policies and the systems, the sciences and the arts of humanity are no longer seen as divorced from spiritual things and from religion, but as steps on a ladder leading up to their study. For Theosophy bridges the gap between the knowledge of God, which is the supreme science, and the sciences of the physical world in which we live, by providing a science of the superphysical, and of religion, and of spirit. Strife, confusion, pain, and evil are there as before, but they are understandable. They are but to be explained by the law of karma. They are necessities of reincarnation. Out of these things men are evolving needed qualities. What they suffer passes away. What they gain in experience they have forever. And our knowledge of the plan behind all the apparent confusion enables us to lay deep and secure the foundations of any social building we may undertake. What, from the theosophical standpoint, should be the main considerations? Which should govern our building? First and foremost, the knowledge that the world exists for the purpose of evolving the spirit, and that of social systems should be constructed to further this end. Second, that all men are brothers in the divinity of their nature, and that their duties therefore depend on their age. To the elder, the duty of protection, help, instruction, guidance. To the younger, desire for learning, loyalty, obedience, trustworthiness. In these two statements, we have outlined a plan, and the details of which can be made ever clearer and plainer by deeper study. But we are forced in this study to contemplate a sweep of evolution behind us greater than we had imagined, and a sweep of evolution before us greater than we had dared to dream. All right, moving on. Had to move my apparatus, my camera, table, chair. Sun was blinding me. Moving on, page 21. Theosophy and Social Reconstruction by the Theosophic Society, which has an office next door to the United Nations, which I suspect is this one New Age religion that will be forced on the world, based on the theory that there are souls that are older than some souls that should be the leaders of the world. And the young souls, as it says here, should be desire for learning, loyalty, obedience, trustworthiness. That's what it says. So what are we to believe? So looking on human life, the importance of small distinctions melts away. The antagonisms between liberal and Tory, Democrats, Republicans, liberal and socialists, socialists and individualists, between the nations and between the races become a secondary consideration. That which matters is what helps the human spirit to evolve. That which hinders it is evil. That which helps it is good. Therefore, no social, political, social, or economic system can claim the allegiance of the Theosophists unless it serves that end. What then for the Theosophists should be the main lines of social reconstruction? Firstly, the social system must be based on the recognition of brotherhood and should give to each the opportunity of growth, which his stage of development needs. The detail of such a system will be complex and must be based on the experience and the teaching of such great men as the future may bring forth. The outline of such a system is simple. The evolution of man takes place in the physical, astral, and mental worlds. In each of these worlds, men should be provided by society with the best possible conditions. In the physical world, all men should be provided with at least the necessary minimum of food, clothing, warmth, and housing required to keep their physical bodies in good health. Those bodies, too, should be born of healthy parents, living in good circumstances. Everything which stands in the way of these conditions is an evil, and anyone familiar with present social conditions will recognize that the Theosophists' demands on the physical plane necessitates a sweeping change of the present state of affairs. To provide men with good bodies at birth, with good nurture during childhood and adolescence and manhood means drastic and comprehensive reconstruction. Rates of wages, conditions of labor, conditions of housing, and 100 other details of ordinary life will need to be greatly altered. Men must have the best possible bodies in order to further their evolution. To give them less is to sin against them in the gravest way. To give them less is to sin against them in the gravest way. And to achieve these ends, much of what is now called socialism will be required. There we go. Socialism, in my opinion, is communism. Probably to the extent of national ownership of chief means of production and of chief necessities of life, buildings, cotton, cloth manufacture, furniture, foodstuff, and so forth, national ownership of the electrical energy of a chief means of distribution, and a very great degree of control of the means of exchange. Huh. Well, they haven't done so well with the controlling now. They pretty much control everything, the big corporations and these elites. All right. Had to take a break for a moment. So you've been watching my videos, I suppose you know, and can see that I am determined to try to find out who these folks are. Zionist, pretty much in control of the world via the Rothschilds, Illuminati types, Rockefellers, which is a cult. And apparently they do a lot of satanic things, even apparently, if you can believe this, some kind of witchcraft rituals where they sacrifice people. And according to David Icke and others, Arizona Wilder and others who were insiders who escaped and told all, they might have a reptilian DNA, half reptilian, half human. It goes all the way back in the Bible, according to one girl who made a comment on my video, that it is misunderstood about Adam and Eve when Satan gave her the apple. Apparently, she had, according to this one girl, I don't know if this is true, I've got more research to do, but apparently she had sex with Satan. So there are a lineage, descendants, of Eve from reptilian DNA, and descendants of Adam, human DNA. So there are people in this reality who are not all human. So what's going on really? Why are we here? And who are these social reconstruction people? These Theosophist societies? Why does the United Nations have a meditation room, which is symbolic of this stuff? Why do the guidestones in the Georgia, United States, say that they want to reduce the population to 500 million, and a lot of other information similar to what I'm reading here, those guidestones, who were apparently put there by some guy called R.C. Christian, which certainly reminds us of the Rosicrucians, who have an R.C. Christian in their history, Mr. Christian. And so the Zionist Jews who think that they are the aristocrats of the world, they're closer to the divine than the rest of us. They are to be our leaders. We were born to serve them. According to the books I went over, Bloody Zion, American Jew Moves to Israel, Jack Bernstein, The Jewish Utopia, Professor Higgins, Rabbi Marvin Anthelman, To Eliminate the Opaque, Volume 1, Volume 2, Henry McCow, Canadian PhD author, who wrote the book Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. And a lot of my videos I will be reposting after I review them. So I will have all of those books, whether I use the old video or a new one, reposted in there. So everything will be reposted. Hopefully with a little more clarity and education, because what I know now certainly is a lot more than I knew 2.5 years ago when I started making videos, and certainly more than I knew in 2005, 11 years ago, when I started this whole research. So let me finish reading this book. It's about 60 pages, so I'm probably going to go to page 30. I'm on page 22, and I didn't highlight everything. End this video, and then do another video for part 2, so that I can get all of the material in this book out, plus my commentary, and any other photos or books or other material I can use to help explain what the heck it is I'm reading and sharing. In the world of emotion, the astral world, our duties are quite as comprehensive. Stated broadly, they are to minimize all violent and coarse emotions and desires, and to stimulate all higher and finer emotions and desires. This means the cultivation of noble literature, of splendid theaters, national and municipal probably, and of beauty everywhere in the ordinary life of man. It also involves, even if the purely physical did not, the granting leisure to all. The granting of leisure to all. Well, that'd be nice. Nobody has to work. No man should work so hard that he has no life left for finer things. And no man should spend all his life at work. To begin work not earlier than 20, and to cease work not later than 50. May seem a utopian idea, but it is a theosophical necessity. For beauty must once again come into men's lives. And where drudgery is, beauty cannot live. Changes such as these involve, of course, most far-reaching changes in education, in labor, conditions and wages, in old age pensions, and in every department of life. And well-being for all, working or lazy, sick or well, young or old, deserving or undeserving, can be the only motto for a nation governed according to the theosophical principles. To all must be given the best possible chance. The penalty will no longer be deprivation by others of the comfort, dignity, and beauty of life, but the self-inflicted penalty of falling out of evolution, of being a laggard amongst comrades who are going joyfully forward. In the world of mind, our duty is to provide for each intellect the opportunities it can best use, to provide for all the chance of growth, of training, of discipline, and to provide for the highest minds everything they may need. Our schools must be made pleasant, calm, beautiful. They must be multiplied enormously. They must be differentiated in 1,000 ways. And the whole of life, of literature, of art, of science, of religion, must be made an aid to the growth of the mind. And of the spirit too, for the service of which the mind is but an instrument. These requirements of a social system changed in accordance with the theosophical ideas are no dream. They are the requirements for the realization of God's plan for the world, the spiritual evolution of man. And they must come and they will go. And they must and will come. For the very turmoil and confusion of the present will lead men to seek again the true way of living, and there shall be many in the coming days who will find it, finding it, know it for the truth, and knowing it, speak it out unto all men. But if this is to come now, in a world where ugliness, noise, disease, confusion, and misery are so potent, it must come by the realization of duty on the part of those who are elder in evolution. So the older souls have to lead all the younger souls. Page 24. Who are elder in evolution, those into whose hands is entrusted the sacred task of guiding aright the destinies of nations and of peoples. Those who are older in evolution must recognize where we stand, must see their duty, and seeing it, pour out their life and their service in sacrifice to the world. For this too is the law of evolution, that the world grows by the outpouring of life, which is more highly evolved, for the benefit of that which is less evolved. This world is but the outpoured life of the Logos, of our world. And if the world of social affairs is to be helped to grow into a more beautiful thing, it can only be by the outpouring and sacrifice of the life of the more evolved, giving gladly and willingly. Pour help, love, sympathy, compassion into the world. For so shall the world grow. So shall the reconstruction, social order, reconstructed social order that we need so badly, be founded and founded upon the understanding of God's plan for the world, which is evolution. All right, least we forget, it was those Zionist, Bolshevik Jewish folks who overthrew the Russian Empire, killed the Tsar and his family, trained and paid by the New York and other elitist Jewish folks, apparently killed 100 million Christians and other good folks in Russia. Anyways, least we forget, these are the same people who created the communist idea, political world. And communist means commune. Everybody is treated like cattle. And we're listening to these words coming from the Theosophic Society. So is it all a trick? And the ends justifies the means is one of their mottos. So will they have to destroy the whole world to bring about their utopia, as Professor Higger said, in the Jewish utopia? Change we can believe in, says Obama. Trump, make America strong again. Meanwhile, Britain exited the EU, and things are crumbling, and the stock markets were crashing. Got bugs out here biting me. So I'm on page 25, and let me just try to finish up this video. Social conditions and social changes. The main lines upon which Reconstruction should proceed are laid down in the first chapter, but it is necessary to attempt to get somewhat nearer to concrete legislative and social proposals if we are to indicate what form these proposals should take. Well-being for all is not obtained at the present time on the physical plane, nor are the other desires of a harmonious evolution provided. What then stands in the way? This must be our first study, and we may take what is ordinarily understood as physical and social well-being as the first data of our investigation. Men should be provided with healthy, well-developed bodies, and disease, malnutrition, and underdevelopment are rampant. Men should be born of healthy parents, living in good circumstances, and instead millions are born of weakly, ailing, and diseased parents, born in very bad conditions. Well, all I can say is, who created these bad conditions? The United States of America is a huge country, including Canada and Mexico. Plenty for all. But 50% of it, or more, is off limits to we the people. And the other 50%, a lot of it is owned by wealthy elites, which also have no trespassing signs. So you take a country the size of the United States, and we've got these forces who apparently own everything, becoming trillionaires, billionaires, and like Ted Turner and Bill Gates, think there's too many of us, and they're into depopulation. They want a lot of people dead. What that prince over there, or in the UK, what did he say? If he was reborn, he wants to come back as a virus, so he can kill everybody or something. Got some insane people running our world. Who's going to stop that? That's what I think there should be. There should be some kind of task force, some kind of CIA or FBI group of people who need to monitor the people who are ruling our world and the activities they're involved in. And those people need to be punished who take advantage of the opportunity to be presidents and senators and representatives and wealthy corporate leaders and all that stuff. People need to be held accountable on those particular jobs more than any other job. What, the United States is the leading manufacturer and sales of weapons to the world? All right. The reason for this are to be sought and found deeper than the examination of individuals will take us. Why multitudes of people in all civilized countries should be nearly starving while thousands of well-meaning people stand by impotent to help. Why food should rot in plenty at one part of the world and men in another waste for hunger. These things can only be understood by realizing that the laws governing the food supply, wages, housing, economic conditions of men generally are social and not individual laws, and as such beyond the immediate control of individuals. Well, even in some cities now it's illegal to feed the homeless. Human beings live not as isolated units, but as cities, counties, countries, nations, and empires. And the laws of the city, country, nation, and empire transcend the control of the individual and the laws of his nature. Just as the laws of the physical body of man transcend the control of any individual cell in that body and the laws of that cell nature. This has always been recognized by economists whose laws of wages, supply and demand, and so forth are realized as beyond immediate individual moral and mental control. And it must be remembered that in certain ways humanity overleaps its boundaries, whether of nation or of empire, that all men belong to a world system united by trade, by interchange of products, travel, literature, and science of a world civilization. Gold dug up in South Africa affects all parts of the world. A great discovery in England or Germany is diffused over the world tomorrow. A great crime shrieks over Europe and America and stirs up perhaps many answering germs of evil where its cry is heard. Even at the present, when so much still divides nation from nation, race from race, there is more of unity and solidarity in the human family than is often realized. The laws of our social life in Great Britain are laws of social body, and it is in the laws of this body that we must look for the obstacles that prevent the realization of the conditions of well-being that we have laid down. But there is nothing unalterable about these laws. Just reading my highlighted portions, which is quite a bit in this book. Alteration has been frequent in the past and is constantly taking place. Factory and mines legislation, public health legislation, education are fields in which, by direct parliamentary action, vast changes, only to be realized by historical retrospect, have been made. The lack of well-being from which we suffer so profoundly is due to bad social organization, an organization made by the social action of men in the past, and to be so unmade or changed in the future as our needs decree. The present social arrangements are convenient to a great many. Our present laws of property, inheritance, taxation, and the like have their good features, but there is nothing especially inevitable or sacrosanct about them. And if, for an extreme example, Conditions of well-being are incompatible with private ownership. Listen up here. If, for an extreme example, conditions of well-being are incompatible with private ownership of land, then we must do away with this private ownership and find something which better serves the needs of an evolving humanity. Attacking no class and no individual, working for the interest of no class and no individual, our aim must be for the race and the nation and the conditions of spiritual evolution for all. But even the most hurried glance over social conditions reveals the fact that many are poor and toil over long day by day and year by year, and few are over-rich. Between the two classes is the middle grade, whose conditions are on the whole tolerable. The many who are the most of the workers are usually so poor as to be debarred from most of the refinements of higher pleasures of life, while a great proportion of them live constantly on the verge of want. This means that usually the supply of workers is greater than the demand, so that men are forced into competition in money, cheapness of labor with one another. Because of this competition for the privilege of work, wages are kept at a low level and have, unless checked by other organizations, trade unions, etc., a constant tendency to fall to the level at which a bare subsistence is just possible. But recent strikes have familiarized the public with the facts of the low wages paid too often to railway, transport, textile, and mine workers. The employers, the nation, and the workers themselves seem to regard the payment of a wage as not as a matter of moral obligation at all, but only as a business bargain. An employer may pay his workers, men or women, boys or girls, so little that healthy life is an impossibility, and yet feel and be regarded as an honest and upright man, even as a benefactor because he provides work at all. So that's how some of these elitists think. Just being allowed to live and eat, they think that you should be thankful. Well, they have billions. You should get on their knees and kiss their feet. According to one video I watched where the Queen of England went to some home for orphanage, and the children had to get on their knees and kiss her boots. How evil are these people? What do they really think they are? In explanation of this low rate of wages, he will talk of the business competition of rivals and of the low efficiency of his workers, but not of his responsibility to them as the paymaster who gives to each the money on which all their material circumstances depend. The idea of this responsibility hardly occurs to him, nor to the nation, nor to the workers. The man's labor, which is bought by a wage, is regarded as something apart from the man himself, as a commodity, which can be bargained and haggled about just as the price of cabbages or houses may be. And this quite artificial way of looking at the matter is persisted in despite the fact that underpayment produces sickness of all kinds, premature breakdown, vice, crime, and destitution, and that through the hospitals and the infirmities, poor, law, reformatories, police, prison system, and private charity, not to speak of the undermining of public health in various ways, these deficiencies are all paid by the public. So when these big corporations like Walmart, for example, we're in a particular city, Santa Fe, New Mexico, for example, they have a minimum living wage, let's say $9 an hour. So what does Walmart do? Right across city line, they built the store. So to avoid the city's living wage, thus putting all these problems, let's see here, underpayment produces sickness, all kinds, premature breakdown, vice, crime, destitution, that through the hospitals and infirmities, poor law, reformatories, police, prison system, private charity, not to speak of undermining the public health in various ways, these deficiencies are all paid by the public. So all the poor people who are suffering because these elitists are cheating us, it is our taxes who are going to pay for those who fall in the system into these vices and crime and breakdown, destitution. And meanwhile, the corporations are not responsible to anybody who are controlling our politicians. It's a rigged system. All the time when we vote, we're giving puppet number one or puppet number two their choices we get to vote for. Their choices, not our choice. Moving on to the book. You cannot have poor wages and bad conditions without paying for them. Men and women, girls and boys, are paid wages which do not allow them to be healthy and well developed. And in one way or another, the public makes up the difference. This is true in the broad sense of every case in which insufficient wages are paid, but in certain parasitic trades, as they have been called, this is more glaring still. So they do cause this distressful situation in society, economic destruction. They are using that to bring about their New World Order. They're causing the economic destruction. As Alan Greenspan said, and please go look up things I say, don't believe me. Alan Greenspan, economic destruction. Listen and see what he said in hearings before Congress. And one congressman said, won't people get hurt? And Alan said, sure, some people will get hurt. But him and the many other dual citizens of Israel are in charge of powerful positions in our country, advisors to our leaders. And by their very nature of their Talmudic, Zohar, and Kabbalah religions and all that, they think they are the aristocrats, the ones who should rule us, and we are animals not to be trusted. We are to be enslaved. Consider all that. So they have to cause the economic destruction described in this book, so everybody will follow into the New World Order, apparently, where they will be microchipping everybody, computerized programs and software which monitors everybody. We'll find out who the insurgents are, those who will not go along, or who rise up and might speak to the public about these things. People who are divergent, like the movie Divergence. It has been pointed out that where there is a competition for work wages, have a tendency to fall to subsistence level. So when people are made just where they can barely survive, this level would often appear to be said in passing to be more correctly called slow starvation level. Obviously, you can't afford to go see a doctor, dentist, buy proper medications and foods. But then we have Monsanto, which is producing genetically modified foods, which aren't healthy for us in the first place. Destructive. And the sky spraying? Destructive. Why are they dumping chemicals in the sky? Maybe biologicals. And then when you look up in those dumped heavy metals, you can see ripples, which is evidence of electromagnetic radiation. Maybe it's the HAARP microwave transmissions, slowly killing the people. And the people are not aware of it. Just saying. But if any other possible source of income independent of the work exists, this would make it possible for still lower wages to be accepted. So usually people have to find a second job besides their first job in order to survive. And there are several such sources of income. One is poor relief, food stamps, etc. Women in receipt of outdoor relief accept work as sweated trades, such as tailoring, box making, at wages which would be impossible without the money from the parish. The poor rate in these cases is paying a part of the wages in a very direct way. Another case is where a woman is employed part-time as a cleaner. A lot of people have second jobs cleaning people's houses. Make up the part-time wage to a more possible amount by help from the poor law guardians, food stamps, etc. And in such a case, the woman may be paid as cleaner of, some say, Somerset House by the State Department, such as a pauper by another. Another such source of help is that derived from husbands or other members of family income, which is added to the sweated wage, makes existence just possible for all. So people will do almost anything to be able to survive. Yet another source of income exists for women in prostitution, and some employers openly and tactically acquiesce to this method of helping out their employees by being parasitic on the health and morality of their employees, and by being morally in the same position as the professional bully who lives on a woman's immoral earnings. Lowness and insufficiency of wages, although in itself is a great evil, is not the only evil, for there yearns constantly at the feet of the workers the pit of unemployment into which he may any day be tumbled. So I guess what's worse than striving to survive is actually getting nothing. But in many occupations there is too little organization, and the wages are too small and too irregular to allow this. And the ever-present possibility of unemployment staring the worker and the worker's wife in the face means the ever-present sense of insecurity in the home. Men and women are thoughtless often, but it boots so little to be thrifty. Improvement, for they dare hardly look more than a week ahead, wasteful because they have not the opportunity to learn care. Who that knows the life of the poor men and women in this country, but has not been struck, not with their vices, which are obvious and simple, but with their virtues and their courage under so great difficulties and trials? So to bring about this new age and this new world religion, they will point out all these issues and make promises of a greater utopia. Can we believe them? Should we believe them? And to me, they're causing the distress, like Alan Greenspan said. When the Rothschilds and Rockefellers created the Federal Reserve, crashing the system 8 or 9 times in 100 years. Families work 20, 30 years to build up a simple bit of reserve and some property and land. Send their kids to college. Maybe grow a little. It all gets destroyed. 2008. Some say it's looming now in 2016. June 25th today. So thank you for watching my video. I'll continue this book and finish it for part 2.